Hi everyone, thank you for watching Member Profile. I'm Sana Wong. In this program, we are delighted to have Mr. Andrew Sheng as our guest. Mr. Sheng is the president of the Fung Global Institute of Hong Kong and the chief advisor to the China Banking Regulatory Commission. He was the chairman of the Securities and Futures Commission of Hong Kong between 1998 and 2005. He served at the Hong Kong Monetary Authority as a deputy chief executive from 1993 to 1998. Before that, he worked in various positions at the World Bank and Bank Negara Malaysia. Mr. Sheng was well known in global financial circles as a central banker and financial regulator in Asia. He is also a commentator on global finance. He is an adjunct professor at Tsinghua University and the University of Malaya. He is a chartered accountant and is an honorary fellow of HKSI. Hi, Mr. Sheng. Thank you for joining us today. First of all, congratulations on your induction as the Honorary Fellow of HKSI in 2012. How does it feel to be inducted as the Honorary Fellow of HKSI?
Well, I'm very honored to become an Honorary Fellow of the Hong Kong Securities Institute. As you know, I was one of the founder members of the Institute, and to be inducted, I feel very, very proud, and I feel very proud of the Institute.
We understand you trained as a chartered accountant. How did you get into the banking and finance industry? Could you tell us some exciting changes in your career?
Well, I decided when I qualified that I wanted to go back and do research. So when I finished working in my home state of Sabah in East Malaysia, I applied to join the Central Bank of Malaysia, Bank Negara Malaysia. And I joined the economics department. I eventually rose to become the chief economist. I started the first flow of fund study in Malaysia, and I enjoyed it very, very much. I didn't have a PhD, but the research was great fun. And then in 1984, the governor asked me to take charge of the bank regulation department, which is in charge of all the banks. And of course, the governor himself was a chartered accountant. And he was also succeeded by another chartered accountant. So I presume chartered accountants are supposed to understand a little bit about banking and accounting. So that's how I started. And in 2 years' time, I handled the first bank runs of the failed deposit-taking cooperatives in Malaysia, and of course was instrumental in changing the whole banking law in Malaysia. And that's how I got into banking.
You have an extraordinary career as a central banker and industry leader, with extensive working experience at Hong Kong MA, SFC, and CBRC. Despite the many achievements made, were there any difficulties or challenges through the years? How did you handle with them?
Well, I think one must fail before one can succeed. And I never worry about failure because we must all learn from it. I've had many, many challenges in my life. Some of them, today I laugh at them. Some of them I sort of am amazed that I actually got through them. There are many, many incidences, probably too many to speak about. But I've been very, very lucky in my life. I've had very, very good mentors. That means people who have given me good advice during the important times of my career. I had very good bosses. They were very, very good colleagues and staff who supported me in whatever I did. So my achievements are certainly not mine. It's been my privilege and my probably luck to be where maybe at the right kind of place at the right time. But one's achievements cannot be judged by oneself. It has to be judged by history.
How do you see the differences or challenges working as a banker and regulator in Hong Kong and China in particular?
Well, there are huge differences. The first is that Hong Kong is very much a free market. It is a very developed market. It's probably one of the most sophisticated financial markets in Asia. And I think I was very, very lucky to work here. I certainly feel very, very privileged to have worked in the SFC and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. The challenges are very different because, first of all, Hong Kong is a common law jurisdiction, and it's very market dominated. You have to learn as a regulator to respect the market, to need to understand the market, to understand the business model behind it, and then to think how you can work with the market. Now, in China, in mainland China, it's a completely different ballgame. First of all, it has a legacy of a government-led system. Most of the banks are state-owned. Most of the securities companies are state-owned. The level of market sophistication is not that strong. There's still a lot to learn. The depth of the market is amazing. You have literally hundreds of millions of investors and a billion depositors. So it's a huge market. It's extremely complicated because China is a very, very large country. A lot of the regulations are administrative. There is a banking law, there are securities law, but most of the rules and regulations are by administrative guidelines and regulations. So the intervention or the visible hand of the regulator in China is much, much more prominent than, for example, in a relatively free market economy like Hong Kong. Now, this means that one must be very humble because you need to do two things. Number one, you need to guide the market and nurture the market. And you need to do much more investor education and consumer education in China and education of the bankers. Because, although China has a very, very deep and big banking system, not many of the bankers have gone through market tests. For example, there has not been any downturn in the banking industry since the macroeconomic measures taken in 1993. So a lot of the credit managers have never experienced a long downturn in the banking system.
Could you share your views on the prospects on the global banking and finance industry, given the prevailing worries on the Eurozone debt crisis and the world economic recovery? What are the challenges and opportunities ahead for Hong Kong and China? What are the mistakes people could make in handling the situation?
Well, first of all, let me say that we have reached a very unusual time in history when we literally have difficulty understanding which way things will become. We have a very deep European crisis, which is still unfolding. We have a US recovery that is very uncertain. We have Asian economies that are now beginning to slow down. We have a potential deflation at the same time as a food crisis and potential huge inflation. And existing theory is no guide at all. What does that mean? That means that we have to be very prudent, very cautious. We're very lucky. East Asia, particularly, is still growing. It's slowing down, but 5 to 7% growth for East Asia is very good when you consider that in Europe you're looking at somewhere between 0 to minus 2% growth. And in America, you're lucky to get 1.5 to 2% growth. So the prospects for East Asia, particularly China and Hong Kong and this region, is still sound. I mean, sound in the sense it's good if there are no policy mistakes. The potential is still very strong because most of East Asia is still developing markets. There are the huge markets of ASEAN, which is nearly 500 million people. There are the big markets of South Asia, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and the Gulf, which are probably 2 billion people. Very markets that are still relatively young, huge potential. So for Hong Kong to play a role in this new market's growth, there are huge opportunities. How we grasp that opportunities is going to be very, very critical. So my advice is, think carefully, be bold in vision, and be very prudent in action.
Mr. Sheng, how do you see your success in the industry? What are the attributes of a successful banker?
Well, I think I don't see myself that successful. I think we always like to do something better than we have done before. As I said, it is not for us to judge. I believe it was Maggie Cheung, the actress, when I asked her, I think way back when I asked her what was her best film, she always said, she replied, and I still remember this, the next film. So I think, I would like to think that, we would like to do tomorrow better than what we have done yesterday. The main thing is we need to understand our own strengths and weaknesses of today. If we don't know where we come from, we don't know where we are, we don't know where we're going. So we have to have a very open mind. We're always learning. We need to always learn because the world is always changing. We need to be very humble to know that we have a lot that we don't know. And it is bad enough to know what one knows. It is more difficult to know what one does not know.
What's your advice to people who want to succeed in the banking industry? How could they equip themselves to develop their career?
I think it is very important for the young people to get to understand the real world, the real sector before they join finance. I think a lot of young people have become, how shall I say, a little bit too ambitious. They want to be very good in finance when they don't understand how the real sector works. Now, if you don't understand how the real sector works, you tend to forget that finance is a service industry. Its whole purpose is to serve the real sector. As I said, I've always been very surprised why financial engineers should be paid many times more than real engineers. And if financial engineers don't understand how the real world works, why should they be paid so much? So one must be very humble. One needs to know that we're a service industry. We need to serve the consumer. We need to serve the investor. We need to serve the small and medium enterprises. We need to serve the people. If they win, then we, the finance service sector, wins. But if they lose and we win, something is very wrong in the system.
What do you enjoy about your work? What is the biggest satisfaction you gain?
What I enjoy about my work is that I wake up in the morning and I want to go to work and I want to deal with the next problem in my life. And I feel very passionate about things, probably a bit too passionate. But my work is my pleasure and I enjoy it. Now, if I've always given my advice to whoever will listen, the day that you don't enjoy your work, get out. But of course, the trouble with work is that it can be very tiring. And so it's very important that one must have a separate life. And I do have some hobbies and, I enjoy those hobbies as much as I enjoy my work.
Mr. Sheng, we understand you wear many hats in different fields, from finance regulation, teaching, and book writing, and you are also the president of the Fung Global Institute. How do you manage your time to fulfill all the commitments?
There's never enough time in a day. As we all say, we wish we have got 25 hours in a day. But I think it's very important that one must have proper balance in one's life. But we never manage to achieve it. But doesn't really matter as long as we enjoy doing what we're doing. Time goes very quickly. But we must have a good sense of proportion. And I think it is important to have a good philosophy about what we want, what we like to do. And it's very important that one must always remember we are what we are because of the people around us, our family, our friends, our colleagues. And if everybody's happy, things will work. If everybody's unhappy, things won't work. It's as simple as that. The Chinese say, 天時地利人和. And it's all about, not about geography, it's not about time, it's about working together. As long as we're united, we can achieve many things. And it's been my luck and my fortune to always be working with great teams.
Could you tell us something more about your love in Chinese ceramics and the tribal ikats?
Yes, one of my pleasures is to collect Chinese ceramics. I only collect a very select few because my wife had very, very good advice in collecting specialized. So I was managed to able to specialize and build up a reasonable collection, a small one, which I enjoy very much. And she also enjoys it, so it's a double pleasure, put it this way. My wife and I also collect tribal textiles called ikat. This is a tie and dye textiles that exists amongst the minorities in China, in Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, Indochina, and in the island of Borneo and in Indonesia. Now, these are what I call the Versace of the, you can call them the primitive people, but actually amongst the minorities, especially the tribal people, they were the finest wares that people wove themselves for their own clothes, for their children, for the wedding, and to honor the husband and the tribe. So these are very beautiful things. Unfortunately, the art is dying out because we now prefer to wear T-shirts and jeans rather than these beautiful things. So my wife and I collect them, hoping that one day this will be preserved and will go into a museum one day.
Mr. Sheng, thank you for sharing your experience with us today. As we all know, you are a founding member of the HKSI. Would you like to say something to our members when HKSI will be celebrating its 15th anniversary this year?
Well, it's amazing how quickly 15 years has gone. I think the Hong Kong Securities Institute should be congratulated for all its great achievements in education for the whole community, its work in educating not just the professionals, but also the investors. And I am sure that the HKSI will play not only a very important role in Hong Kong, but also throughout the whole of Asia. I want to congratulate the chairman, the executive committee members, the council members, and all the members for a great anniversary. Happy birthday, happy anniversary, and many more returns of the day. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. See you next time.